What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other fantastic host of this show, Nick. And Nick, we're back to 500. We're 6-6. You were in the building yesterday for the Rams' home win against the Cleveland Browns. First and most importantly, how are you, my good brother, and how the hell was the game yesterday?
Awesome game, awesome environment, great fans. Tailgating was super fun. Browns fans also, shout out to them. They were pretty fun and cordial the whole time. I'm a little tired because all day was just all Rams day, but it was so great. So, and the energy in there was really was bumping. And sometimes you don't get that, but we definitely got it this week.
Yeah, what I heard was really interesting, the hard counts, right? So Matthew Stafford was able to get his cadence down. There were no silent counts. The fans were working to his favor, right? They had everything that they needed in terms of a home field advantage in this game. I was hearing 80-20 Rams fans, which, I mean, that's awesome. It's not a direct rival. It's not an NFC rival. It's an AFC team that doesn't travel well when they go over to the West Coast. The Rams have a solid record against them over the last, 10, 12 years or so. And Joe Flacco was making his first start. It's the fourth different starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. And I think it goes to show how solid that defense has been all season. The fact that they've been able to play four different starting quarterbacks and still be 7-5 at this point in the season. So not an easy task for this Rams team whatsoever. We came into this game, we were thinking to ourselves, all right, we got to do a heavy dose of run. We need Kyren Williams. We need him on the duo. We need him inside. If we're going to be able to stretch the outside, it's going to be on opportunities like a 90 flip. Nick, you were talking about pitches in the last episode. Be able to get him around the edges. But that wasn't the diagnosis in this game.
No,
they let Matthew Stafford throw it, and they let him throw it early and often. And they had some explosives to Puka Nacua, who is just growing up before our eyes and becoming a Rams legend before everybody's eyes. And it's offensive line's playing great. It's so encouraging to see how far this team has come over the last 3 weeks.
It felt like just straight run plays were negative or 1 yards. So like early on in the game, it was like, we're going to have to ask Stafford to throw not even that deep, but just like, it's like quick out routes to get like some momentum going. And then that first Puka touchdown. I mean, like, part of me wants to take a chill pill after that win because it was against Joe Flacco's Browns. You know what I mean? But then another part of me is like, everybody else that beat the Browns, which isn't that many people, also went up against this ferocious defense and like a backup quarterback, or like Deshaun Watson, who played like a backup this year. So like I was walking back to the car and I was just like, no, like that's a real win. That's a real win against a playoff team, and it's 3 in a row. Like it is you have every right to be celebrating right now. It's annoying that thank you for pulling this up. It's annoying that the Green Bay Packers had to win last night over the Chiefs and stay in this playoff picture, because everything else we predicted happened, and the Rams should be in that 7th seed. But the Packers, credit where credit is due, played a great game against the Chiefs.
Yeah, you just have to worry about Seattle, Minnesota, Green Bay at this point, right?
Because you're not going
to. They went all the way down to the 9th seed. Yeah, I mean they're 6-6. Rams are also 6-6 in the 8th seed, 1 game behind Green Bay. And then there's the Packers there in the 7th seed. They own the tiebreaker between the Rams and the Packers, obviously. And then there's the Vikings at 6-6, and Dallas is 9-3. So, you're coming off of that Dallas week 3 weeks ago, and you're thinking to yourself, you lose by a combined 40 points to Dallas and Green Bay. But you go into that Dallas week, you were 3-4 with legitimate hope. And then you lost 2 in a row, brought you to 3-6. Fans are legitimately turning on this team at this point, right? They want them to lose the remainder of the games, get a higher draft pick. And it's completely understandable when you lose those 2 games in Dallas and Green Bay by a combined 40 points. When you're 3-4 with legitimate hope going into the Dallas week, and then you fall on your face in that regard, there's no encouragement. You're thinking to yourself, all right, what is the tank actually in place? But when they're persistent in their approach, and they were all offseason, going all the way back to training camp, when the rookies were arriving on those team buses and nobody knew everybody's name and everybody needed a nameplate, and Sean McVay was walking around with swagger. And the line that came out of that whole preseason rebuilding, retooling saga was, if we're not going to be good, there's not a lot of people in this building who know it. Like that is kind of the basis of this Rams football team. Is they're good enough because they put together persistent plans in the offseason to develop these young core, these young rookies, and even defensively, like you knew that they were going to be an inexpensive unit. Holistically, it was going to be led by Aaron Donald, and you were going to need Kobe Turner to contribute. You're going to need Byron Young to contribute, and guys like Akello Witherspoon, free agents. Like there's so many different opportunities that the Rams needed to hit on, and this is an incredible job by the player personnel staff, by Les Snead, and it's a great coaching job by Sean McVay, who likely isn't going to get the credit that he deserves for Coach of the Year. So
no,
and that's how much we've turned it around in 3 weeks.
Raheem, too, who everybody was ready to fire last year and then fire at the beginning of this year, too, has called 3 great defensive games in a row. Against, like, the Rams looked like the more formidable defense against, like, historically, this is like one of the greatest defenses in the Browns in like the Super Bowl era. It's funny, though, because I was talking to Browns fans and they're like, yeah, everybody says that and the stats say that, but I watch these games and it does not feel that way at all. And it kind of felt that way for the big part of the game last year. All the Rams really needed, though, was a defensive turnover to turn the game around.
Yeah, and so that's what you I mean, it's perfect example of the last 3 opponents: 16 points Seattle, 14 points Arizona, then 19 points to the Cleveland Browns. Being able to finally get some defensive points on the board in one of the last plays of the game on Joe Flacco when he was sacked back into the end zone. It was their first defensive points of the season. This is via J.B. Long, came on the safety in the closing seconds of the Week 3 win over the Browns. Aaron Donald and Kobe Turner left the field arm in arm. LA has won 3 in a row and get back to 500, 36-19 victory. And here's Aaron Donald and Kobe Turner arm in arm, skipping down the field, celebrating how incredibly efficient the defense was down the stretch. Raheem Morris deserves a ton of credit. And then here's Chris Long. He came out and said, a couple of weeks ago, Joe Flacco was chilling by the fire watching ball. Now he's getting sacked into the goalpost on 4th and 34 by Aaron Donald. That is a rude awakening. Welcome back to the NFL. He was clean, held upright the entire game. And then on 4th and 34, he's left on under the goal line. So that's as good as you want your defense to play against an offense like that. So I mean, with Amari Cooper going out, the Browns too, I mean, like, they were banged up. So you can't talk about this game without talking about Myles Garrett being banged up and Denzel Ward. But Amari Cooper, like, that was clearly Joe Flacco's first read through all of his progressions. It was his primary target. Amari Cooper was really vocal throughout the week about how he loved Joe Flacco. It was poetry in motion in practice. And then it kind of comes to fruition once Amari Cooper comes out of the game that the offense can't push the ball.
For 3 quarters, Joe Flacco played really good football, I thought.
Sure did.
I mean, it was mistake free. He was making like tight window throws. He had like some sidearm throws, and he was doing everything to like keep them in the game. It gave him the first lead, 7-0, which is when I live bet the Rams, by the way. But yeah, I mean, like, I was impressed, and I was thinking, I was like, this is kind of what the Browns need. Like, put them up against, maybe like a less formidable foe than the Rams, and they probably win a lot of those games with Joe Flacco as opposed to PJ Walker. But then, they ask him to throw a deep out route just down the seam, and it's in the double coverage, and John Johnson ends up making the game-winning interception, which honestly should have really just been like a punt. But, because he's John Johnson and the offense of the Browns kind of gave up, like, he was able to get into, like, essentially the red zone.
Had an incredible return on that interception.
Yeah, so, like, that return is really what won the Rams the game after it's all said and done. And that's, like, the pick obviously is on Flacco, but
you made an interesting point.
Bring down John Johnson.
You made an interesting point. John Johnson was talking smack all week to his former team. Obviously, used to play for the Cleveland Browns. They gave him a huge contract after he left Los Angeles. So that was a pretty fulfilling moment, I could imagine, for him. But you made a really good point in terms of that first possession when you live bet the Rams. Their opening possession, in terms of their defense, they allow the offense to march down the field. It seems like it's a consistent theme with this defense. It's very odd, the fact that it happens this consistently, but it's the 5th time this season that it's happened. 4 of the last 5 games, with the exception of the Packers game, which, I mean, it's hard to even like conceptualize how frequently that's happening, but it's like they're diagnosing in real time how they want to be able to adjust their defense later on in the game. So I have no issues with it. I mean, Dallas, Seattle, Arizona, and Cleveland all scored on their opening possession, and then their total yards throughout each possession on average continues to drop throughout the remainder of the game. And then if the Rams are able to force a turnover, you know that the game is going to bounce in favor of the Rams. So
They
like
also have responded the last 2 weeks when that's happened. They've gone down and scored immediately, so to like tie it up, and then after that, the defense kind of comes out and makes a stop. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, some really good 3 and outs, and that first Puka touchdown, like, oh my god, like right across the middle of the field, see ya. Like,
so third fastest ball carrier via next gen stats. We saw DK Metcalf on Thursday night, just a stallion down the middle of the field.
You know what? It was a similar type play.
It was the same type play. Puka Nacua was like a fraction slower than DK Metcalf, who is a track sprinter, incredible athlete. Puka Nacua is a 5th round pick. You don't expect him to be able to have that kind of short area speed, quickness to be able to then, separate himself and get down the field. But Cooper Kupp has the same assets and same skill sets. Like, that's why they're so incredible to watch. And you're watching this kid grow up right in front of your eyes. It's Puka Nacua's 3rd game with 150 scrimmage yards this season. It's tied most by a rookie wide receiver since 1969 with Jamar Chase and Randy Moss. That's how good Puka Nacua is right now. I wanted to make sure that we emphasized Puka Nacua's current trajectory and where we think he's going to net out on the season, because 77 receptions for 1,029 yards and 4 touchdowns this season as a rookie. He's going to be very, very soon in the same company as a few of these modern day greats. Like, you're talking about Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Anquan Bolden, all had more than 1,300 yards. Randy Moss, 1,300 yards. Odell Beckham, 1,300 yards. You're talking about maybe 3-4 more games for Puka Nacua to enter some of the most elite company in NFL history in terms of rookie wide receivers. He is playing that well. And not to mention, he got knocked out of the game. He came off the field crying because he hurt his ribs. And whatever kind of rehab he got at halftime, he came out an incredibly efficient block to spring Kyren free on a run in the beginning of the second half. And he continuously plays unbelievably aggressive. He's where he needs to be on the field. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's growing up in front of our eyes. Can't say enough good things about him.
Absolutely. He's definitely still young. I feel like he's still good for like 1 drop a game. After he got completely knocked out of the game, I think it was maybe like the first or the second drive that we had in the second half, he misses like a 3rd down catch.
Yep.
But I mean, still, he's like jumping up and contorting his entire body to like potentially catch this ball and bring it in bounds. But I mean, he's like on the path of being like 2021 Cup right now, which is crazy to say, like if you were to say that in the beginning of the year, but it's true. Like he doesn't
have the touchdowns, but he has the targets, he has the receptions, he has the yardage. If he were to play another 10 games in this season, there's no telling.
Hey, he had the touchdown this week,
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is Cooper Kupp had like an unfair 21 game sample size of greatness. He went over 2,100 yards. He had like 20 touchdowns total in that 2021 season. Triple Crown winner, Super Bowl MVP. It's almost the most untouchable season that a wide receiver will ever have in the history of football. So
it's so funny. Just I'm bringing up like greatest wide receiver seasons at tailgates, which you do, just like typical fodder conversation. And I bring up Cooper Kupp, and everyone's like, It's like, all right, like I get it. He's not like Tyreek Hill. He's not like the most athletic guy, but damn, like he had maybe the best wide receiver season ever.
He did. Yeah, statistically had the greatest wide receiver season ever. And he's a little banged up. And there's probably a little bit of concern with the Rams' receiving core, right? Because Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson are rotating consistently at the X. Maybe Demarcus Robinson is a little bit more valuable in the run game, but you saw him get a few targets down the stretch, had a touchdown. You saw Cooper Kupp get involved in the end zone too. So I feel like they're doing a really solid job of distributing the rock. But if there's a little bit of concern around Cooper Kupp, A, he's unhealthy, and B, Puka Nacua is so valuable that he's able to take the stress and pressure off of Cooper Kupp, which is what everybody in the offseason wanted. Remember how afraid we were that Matthew Stafford was going to consistently target Cooper Kupp 15, 20 times a game? He was going to re-aggravate an injury, and that was going to be what the Rams' offense had to offer? Not even close. They revamped the running game. They've gotten so many different receivers involved. Matthew Stafford over the last 3 weeks, 3-0, 698 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks, a 101.8 rating. And he is very much heating up at the right time with still a sprained UCL in his thumb. Seems like it's coming back. He's throwing the football really well. Had a couple of misses, a couple opportunities in the red zone where he almost threw an interception. And then I think he missed, I don't know if it was before the first half was expiring. He had one over Puka Nacua's shoulder that he probably could have dropped in for a touchdown. And then I think he missed on a throw to Tutu Atwell also.
Missed on like an easy, like just 2-step back dump off to Higbee too. Like just kind of threw the ball into the ground. And I was like, what are you doing? How'd that happen?
Dead play.
Yeah.
Most likely didn't like what Higbee was going to see in front of him potentially, or he was getting pressured. So I don't know. I mean, he is, I mean, as good as you could want him to be. I think at this point in his career, he's incredibly efficient. But I think it's also really important that you bring up the guys that are protecting him, right? Because 0 sacks allowed in back-to-back weeks. I can't recall the last time that happened. I don't even know if that happened in 2021, to be honest with you.
I mean, against the Browns, like, what the hell? Like, Myles Garrett, I think, was on a 6-game sack streak going into this.
Yeah, and that's where everybody's asking themselves, like, how bad is the injury? Because he only had, I think, 1 pressure on 42 attempts in the week prior. And then in this game, he didn't record a single stat. He played a season-high 89% of snaps and did not record a single stat in this game. Like, that is an incredible job by Alaric Jackson, an undrafted player, willingly plays left tackle. And then obviously as Steve Avila and Coleman Shelton's playing really well at center, and Kevin Dotson, an incredible move by Lester P. Snead, and Rob Havenstein is probably the most foundational, solid, consistent piece that the Rams have had outside of Aaron Donald over the last 8 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just really, really impressed with the last 3 weeks. And I think that this team, we talked about what our expectations were prior to the season starting. We were like 9 wins, 10 wins, potentially get a 7th seed in the playoffs, maybe get the 6th seed. This team doesn't know that they're going to be bad. Like that was
all the Rams fans out there. So everybody listening, and I guess my friends and Dean's friends that aren't Rams fans that just listen as well. Don't worry about next week. Obviously, if you're a player, go in there and try to kick the Ravens' ass and make a real statement. But look at the schedule after that. I mean, it's Washington, it's New Orleans, it's New York, and then it's San Francisco, who might not even need it. So there's a road map to 10 wins, 100%. We had to split against the Browns and the Ravens, and we got one.
Yeah, we sure did. And I totally 100% agree with don't worry about next week. It's an AFC opponent. The schedule eases up. But then I'm also kind of concerned about the fact that San Francisco just beat Philly. So I don't know. San Francisco is probably still going to be contending for that number 1 seed because I feel like the Eagles and Niners are going to go down to the very last game of the season, potentially with the Cowboys.
Eagles are going to drop,
or the Lions rather, who are 9-3.
Yeah, so, damn. Well, hey, I mean, if we have to beat San Francisco to get in the playoffs, so be it. I mean, that would be an amazing.
Knock them out of the 1st seed. That would be incredible, right?
Yeah.
Force them to have
and then we play them the following week and lose, maybe.
Totally fine. At least we force them to get a little bit more banged up, to be physical. They played them tough earlier on in the season. If you play them in back-to-back weeks, I would think that's discouraging for a San Francisco team who wrote you off earlier on in the season. So
yeah, and hey, we actually put up a really good fight against them. But let me just say one more thing about Stafford and this offensive line to piggyback on what you are saying.
Sure.
I think he believes with. Oh yeah, I mean, just look at this. Just shows this picture right here. Just shows the true grit of this offensive line and what they were dealing with throughout the day. I think Stafford believes with an offensive line this strong as his bodyguards, he has another run in him. I truly believe that that's what he thinks, is that he can bring this team to another Super Bowl, NFC Championship, whatever. And I think next year they're going to make pushes and they're going to make deals and they're going to make things happen where the team gets a little more juiced up and the defense looks a little prettier and, they're going to be competing next year. And I think those people that want to get rid of Stafford, and I know that they're a small vocal minority, it's not going to happen.
No, he's not going anywhere. When he has an offensive line to this caliber with I don't know, you don't even want to call it this much talent, but to be able to work together this well with this much continuity in such a short period of time, what it also spawns is Kyren Williams, right? Because a good offensive line, you could run the ball as efficiently in between the tackles and guards as you want to. And since his return, Kyren Williams has made the offensive line look great, and the offensive line has made Kyren Williams look great, and the offensive line has made Matthew Stafford look great. 37 carries, 231 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 receptions, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. Those are running back one numbers any way that you stretch them. It's over 300 yards in 2 weeks, rushing and receiving, 3 total touchdowns. He's an incredible fantasy player. Sean McVay actually joked that Kyren's on his fantasy team, so they wanted to keep him involved later on in this game. But that outside of fantasy, the fact that the kid has developed as well as he has, you see the idolization behind Steven Jackson and the way that he carries himself, the way that he runs the ball with physicality. He's got some great finesse. He makes people miss. He's been a dream. Like, he has changed the entire dynamic of this offense. And I'm kind of remiss to not mention him until we're 20 minutes into this episode, but he has been outrageously good since he got back.
Yeah, like insane. It is funny in a way that the 2021 season will stand out as an outlier because they were able to finish the job and win it all without like a really consistent run game. But like if you look at McVay's career, it's like his best or his better seasons, not his best, but his better seasons are the ones where he has a bell cow back that he can really rely on and allow, to get big chunkage so then he can have these developing pass plays. And this season, with Kyren on the field and with him off the field, it's just such a huge difference. And 100% running back one. He's probably going to win a couple people their fantasy league. The fact that they got him in the end zone last week or yesterday, I should say, they didn't really even need to, but they found a way to get him in there, and it was pretty awesome.
Well, there was some criticism, like, could the Rams have just kneeled down on that? Like, my opinion was, punch the ball in the end zone. Like, you got to force the Browns.
I think that took it over as well, but then they ended up scoring again. So
yeah, 36-19. They almost hit the over/under alone. The over/under total for the game was 39.5. The Rams with 36 points, which is impressive.
I saw that line at over/under 39.5, over/under 40, and I was like, that's a Browns line. Like, they think the Browns are going to win, and yet the Rams are favored by 3.5, which they were able to cover, which I didn't love all week, but that's why I took a money line when they were down, because I was like, there's a little more extra juice on it now. They were like actually underdogs when they were down 7-0.
Yeah. So, this is how good they've been over the last 3 weeks. And I think you look at some of the NFL teams and the tiers and where they net out, this is all 4 quarters over the last 3 weeks, weeks 10 to 13. You look at some of the top teams in terms of this axis. It's the Dallas Cowboys, it's the San Francisco 49ers at the top in terms of the 2 teams that are playing the best in terms of offensive EPA per play. But then you look at the Rams, you look at the Dolphins, the Packers, the Lions, like everybody within this 0.1 to the right of the axis is all playing extremely well football, extremely solid. They're playing tough in terms of efficiency and expected points per attempt. They're on top of their game. And I think that's a lot to do with coaching. It's a lot to do with the entire team effort. You have and you saw with the Packers last night against the Kansas City Chiefs. Packers are the youngest team in football, but they have some young, hungry football players that want to be able to get wins at home in front of their home fans, because that's what that team and that franchise does. Similar to the Rams when they've come back to Los Angeles, you need a winning culture. It's the only way to unite this fan base. You cannot tank and unite a fan base in Los Angeles. It will never, ever happen.
Right. I also believe that, and I've said this before, when you're not a, elite class of the NFL, a Cowboys, a Niners, and Eagles organization, the Rams fans do show up. They show up and they're there. Maybe they sell their tickets for the expensive Raiders games and whatnot. And that's what makes it a little more uneven. But it was an amazing display of Rams fans yesterday. Unlike one I really haven't seen in a really, really long time. So shout out to all the fans and everybody that makes the Rams culture what it is. Also, Taron Killam had there's like a new thing where it was like North Side versus South Side doing like a who's house. And then at the end of it, he's like, all right, guys, we all know who's the strongest. All of us when we're together. And I was like, all right. Like,
There's nothing.
Do you, brother?
Nothing not to love. Nothing not
and
to
then,
love.
And then all my friends who I was with was like, isn't that the guy that was on the pod? And I was like, you're damn right he was.
That's the guy. That's Taryn. Spamalot's finest. LA Rams, #1 celebrity fan, Taryn Killam. Yeah, I was curious on third down in this game because the Browns were like 6 of 17 on third down, which is right around the Rams' percentages allowed. But I feel like on third down, when we were there for the Philly game, the Eagles fans were so obnoxiously loud on third down opportunities for their own offense. How was the Rams' crowd on third down? Were they loud enough? Were some of the graphics and spectacles that they showed on the Oculus, were they still corny, or are they kind of coming a little bit of a long way?
Like, this is interesting because I felt like the vibe from Browns fans was very mellow the entire time. So the Rams, it wasn't like loud when the Rams were driving, unless they did something good, and then the fans would cheer. And then when the Browns were, like in the red zone, I think the Rams fans would like wake up a little bit and like, try to be like a little louder. But it was mellow. It was pretty mellow the entire day. It was also a lot of good defense for most of the day until like the explosion at the end. But yeah, I mean, it was two fan bases that were happy to sit in a stadium together and not, want to like tear each other's face off. It was very similar to when you and I went to the Ravens game in Baltimore, and it was just like, hey, you're an NFC opponent that we never really see. Like, how you doing? You know what I mean? Like, There's no real animosity. Nobody was trying to like, go for us. And Rams fans were really trying to kill any Browns fans. Hopefully, I say this now and watch like 7 fight clips are going to find their way on Twitter. But I mean, I didn't see anything, and everything I experienced was really positive and fun. It's also really easy to shake somebody's hand after you lose and be like, "Hey, good game."
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I won.
Joe Flacco, similar to me, if I was coming into this game, was coming off of South Jersey's finest couch. Like the expectation of the Cleveland Browns fans coming into the stadium, expecting the Browns to come out and win the game on the road against a team that they historically haven't beaten. To me, feels like it was wishful thinking. It was an opportunity for a team in the Midwest to be able to kind of travel and get to Los Angeles for a vacation opportunity. But a game like the Raiders, a game like the Eagles, a game like the Steelers, like those are the opportunities for the season ticket holders to probably make money, right? Like that's how you kind of net out your season tickets like throughout the remainder of the season. It's like, okay, if I sell this game, I could pay for my tickets and I could do this and do that. And like that to me makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a really, really interesting dynamic. And Ernest Jones post-game was talking so highly about the defense. So like that to me is just really encouraging. The fact that he is the captain, he's the vocal leader, he's the Mike linebacker, and this defense is going to be able to consistently be dominant later on in games, force turnovers, put points on the board, and play complementary football, which is all we've asked for this season.
Which is what they did all game. It was incredibly impressive. A great performance by Rams, giving us.
Do you want to talk about bringing in a new kicker or what? Are you okay with Haversick?
Oh yeah, special teams. The only thing I really tweeted about during the game. I think they should try people out. I really do. I don't, I hate it. I hate when they line up at like the 30 or like the 40 because it's not a guarantee. It's like a 50-50 shot. Luke misses another. I don't even think it was that far, right? Was it like
it was a 45-yard attempt or 43-yard attempt that he shanked, right? I think he made a 44-yarder and then missed a 43-yarder and then almost missed an extra point.
Almost missed like a 20-yarder.
It's just too shaky.
Oh, yeah, it's way too shaky. And
it's like when you overcompensate in golf. It's like when you shank back-to-back shots in golf and then you hook one immediately after because you tried to overcompensate for your mistake. That's what.
Yeah, I think you have to bring in somebody else because it will eventually bite you in the ass, like it did in the Steelers game. It was like we had the other guy, the guy from the Cowboys, Maher. Thank you, who kind of was like able to steady the ship like long enough, and then all of a sudden, it just completely blew up in the Rams' face. And I think that has a real chance of happening again with this Luke kid.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to try out more kickers.
Try out some more kickers. You're a serious contending playoff team at this point. You're 6-6. You have an opportunity down the stretch to win some big games.
Yeah,
stay in the home
9 seed.
Yeah, sure are. Sorry.
Crazy. I think our better shot now with what it's watching how Green Bay is surging is Minnesota falling, which sucks because I like the Vikings, but I'd rather.
I hope Minnesota falls. If Green Bay continues to surge, then we'll still have that 7 seed because Green Bay will take Minnesota's 6th spot. So we appreciate you guys listening. You guys are the best. Make sure before you go anywhere that you like and subscribe. A lot more fun coming your way for the remainder of this season. 4-5, a lot more fun weeks. Hopefully a playoff week. And we love you guys. Go Rams.
Go Rams. Horns up, baby.
Peace.